of the student government. And I'd like to welcome you guys. SAIS. Thank you so much for coming out for the open house and coming to find out a little more about us and what we do here and our experiences. And also congratulations, of course, for getting into SAIS. I'm sure a lot of you guys will be back here, so I want to, from the student government at least, welcome you guys here, and I hope you guys have a good day. Just a little bit about what, I'll say a little bit about what we're doing here for this next hour. We're each going to talk about our experiences briefly here at SAIS. We'll each cover sort of a different topic area. And then after we're all done speaking, you guys can address questions to us as a group or individually if there's something else you guys want to know more about. So we'll take a little bit of time to introduce ourselves, but then the vast majority of the time you guys will be asking questions and we'll try and answer them as thoroughly as possible. So to introduce myself, my name is Sean Healy. I'm a second year here. I'm graduating in May. I'm China Studies with also a concentration in finance. Prior to SAIS, I went to New York University and studied politics, and I was also in the film school there and did some consulting work. And I'll be joining the Fed after I graduate, starting in June. So I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the leadership development that we have here at SAIS. We have a really great program that we started this year, which is similar, I think, to what you would see in MBA programs called SAIS Leads. I took this in the winter, over the winter break. It's a 2-day course, and you really get to, I guess, well, when we did it, this was the pilot program, so there's about 30 people there, and you really, you do sort of group exercises, practice leadership skills, get critical feedback on your communication, how you lead a group, how you, how you set out to accomplish a task together. So I found that really helpful, especially in terms of being able to talk about in job interviews, what's your leadership experience, or how would you solve this situation where you have a conflict with a group of people? So I felt that was a really great program. I know that they're starting that in August of this year, right before orientation. So I'm not sure if it's open to first years, but it'll definitely be a new annual program that we're doing every year from now on. And the school has been really good about listening to student demand for these types of leadership activities. And then we also have lots of leadership activities. I'm in student government along with Jason here and Lubomir. We also have club leaders here, so we can all talk about the leadership opportunities that are available at SAIS, and that was one of the main reasons why I came here. I came from a big school where there wasn't a lot of leadership opportunities, and I really wanted a smaller program where I could make an impact and really focus on improving those skills. So, Patty, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick Flanagan. I'm from Ireland. I'm a second year international development concentrator student. Before coming to SAIS, I did an undergrad in commerce in Dublin, and then I worked for Accenture for a year. And I guess this morning I've been asked just to briefly talk about the Bologna Center, which I believe many of you here have applied for and hopefully will go to in the fall. I guess the one thing to kind of encapsulate to kind of think about the Bologna Center is that when you go there, there's a great sense of community among all the students. There's 200 students. You're from all over the world. Last year, when I went to Bologna Center last year, it was about 50% American. Then the rest are from Europe, from Africa, from Asia. I think this year there's a large concentration of students from Asia, from Australia, New Zealand, and it brings a great sense of community, and it brings a different perspective on your education at SAIS, Johns Hopkins University. As well, when you come to DC, or the way I found it anyway, is that it can be quite hectic and there's a lot of demands on your time. And Bologna, you have a bit more time to kind of absorb these theories and the education that you're receiving. The education is at the same excellent level that you will receive here in DC. It's just that you'll often get a very European perspective on world events. Another thing to consider as well, that there's so many student activities at Bologna. There's organised trips to the opera. There's historical tours in Bologna, around the region, in Florence and in Milan and Roma. And there's many faculty trips as well that you get exposed to and get the opportunity to take part in. When I was there last year, there were trips to the Balkans, there were trips to Berlin, there were trips to, what else? There were career trips to London, to Brussels. There were faculty trips as well to Turkey. And then there were also student organised trips. There were skiing trips, there were trips to NATO. One student organised a trip to visit NATO in Rome and to visit some of the embassies there in Rome and the international institutions there in Rome. But the academics are of equal excellent quality as well, I would say. The Bologna Center brings in many kind of practicing practitioners from Brussels, from London, from Paris, and they'll come in every 2 weeks and teach courses. And that gives you a real insight into what's happening in these power centres of the world. What else can I say? There are also many different classes that you won't actually get to do here in DC. There are specific classes in conflict management, in the Middle East, in energy, and of course in European studies. Bologna has really become a centre of excellence for European studies within Europe, for sure. And I'll be here all day. If anyone has any questions now or afterwards, please come up and ask me.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Karina Veras, and I'm also an International Development Concentrator. And I'm here to talk about student organizations. I run the African Diaspora Association, and I also run the salsa and tango classes with Jason for the Latin American Studies Club. And I also run some programs for the Careers in Development Club. And what's great about SAIS is that we have a wide range of student organizations, both regional activities clubs and also career clubs like Consulting Club, Finance Club. And these organizations are great. They are a great networking tool. They organize speakers that come and speak at SAIS about their companies. They also organize career treks to New York and also different cities, and they're a great resource for internships. And the regional clubs are great because you come together with people that have the same interests as you. And most of the students that run the clubs are second-year students, but as a first-year student, first or second semester, you can become involved and be one of the administrators of a club. That can be easily done. Or if you feel that there isn't an organization at SAIS that it's interesting for you, you can come together with 2 or 3 other students and form a club. A good number of clubs were actually formed this year, and SGA is a great resource for us. They're always there to help us. So I really love the wide range of student organizations that we have here at SAIS and the events and the speakers that we bring. And every Friday we have a happy hour that's sponsored by SGA, but it's hosted by a different student organization. That's where we get our funding to host these different events. So if you guys have any more questions, just feel free to come and ask me.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm a second-year ERE, which is Energy Resources and Environment Concentrator. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I went to college, Williams College, Massachusetts, and then moved to New York City, where I worked in nonprofits as a grant writer and events planner for 5 years. I did the Bologna Center with Patty. I run the Salsa and Tango Club. I teach the tango classes with Karina. And I'm on SGA with Sean and Lubomir. And so my charge here is to talk about SGA programming, our student government, from a social side. So what do we do here to let you have fun and not freak out when you have 10 papers due and 80 hours internship a week? So we have a couple major events that we do every year. In the fall, we have an international dinner. It's a potluck style event where we ask people from, bring a dish that represents, where you come from. And then it's kind of in the middle, we'll have a little talent show type thing with people demonstrating different talents from wherever they came from. So last year we had a Chinese dancer, we had a fiddler, we had a tango performance, and it's a lot of fun. We also have a Halloween party every year. You'll get stories about that, I'm sure. A couple weeks ago we had a black tie ball at the Swedish embassy. It's jokingly called SAIS prom, but I tried really hard not to make it that. But it was a lot of fun, and it gives you a chance to not just go out to U Street and bump and grind, but actually a chance to put on a nice suit, nice dress, and feel classy for at least 4 hours. this coming Monday, as many of you know, it's Passover, so we're having open to everyone Seder in this room, actually. So if you're Jewish and you're far away from home, or if you're not Jewish and just want to see what it is, we have events like that for the different celebrations, all student-led. And then in 2 weeks, we have what we're calling SAIS Palooza, which is going to be taking over this entire building. It's going to be a block party. There's going to be music. There's going to be dancers. There's going to be artists. There's a photo contest, a talent show at the end. So basically a Saturday to de-stress for a little while and have fun. So, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Basque. I'm coming from France and Côte d'Ivoire. And I'm also a second-year ERE student, Energy, Resource and Environment. As Paddy and Jason, I spent my first year in Bologna, which was a great, unique experience that I really recommend to everyone. But what I would like to emphasize on today is really the SAIS community, what the SAIS community is about. And I really realized the soundness of the SAIS community once I arrived in DC. And to be more specific, 10 days after I arrived here in DC, I was involved in a serious car accident with other SAIS students. And I was far from home, far from my family, and we lost one of our friends, actually one of the best students among us in this accident. And I realized to which extent the SAIS community was a great one, with all the support I received from the friends, the staff, the school staff, and all the faculty members. And I mean, I would really, I will never be grateful enough to mention how supportive they've been in this tragic event. So, well, I would also like to add that our community has also proven its engagement in many other occasions. Last year in Bologna, right after the earthquake in Haiti, our students managed to raise significant amount of money for the people in Haiti. Again, more recently, with the natural catastrophe in Japan, students have demonstrated their involvement and tried to raise awareness, as they did with the political situation in Côte d'Ivoire with the post-electoral crisis. It was really amazing to see how all the students, and also not only the students, but the staff and the faculty members tried to be involved and reach out to the media and as they can, member in the Congress also. So yes, well, the point I want to make is that SAIS community really exists, it truly exists, and I'm really proud to be part of it. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Tracy. I live on U Street, and I can attest that there is indeed a lot of bumping and grinding. And but the cherry blossom ball that we had was far more classier. So, okay, so I'm originally from Singapore, and I'm actually a MIPP student here, which means it's a mid-career thing. It's 1 year, and you don't have any sort of restrictions on the classes or courses that you take, which means that it can be pretty intense because, you know, you probably want to load up. You only have a year here, 2 terms, and it can also be a very enriching experience. I'm here to talk about the kind of like speakers and brown bag lunches that we get. So I've been a journalist for the last 12, 13 years. I've worked in Singapore, China, and in DC. And before I came to SAIS, we would run around, you know, DC to the different think tanks, Brookings, CSIS, to listen to, you know, talks, experts, that kind of thing. But then SAIS has really like a real fair bit of like, you know, the top-notch speakers who come to town. Like recently we had talks by Timothy Geithner. We had the State Department's Anne-Marie Slaughter. We had Admiral Mike Mullen come to talk. Just on Monday, we had like a conference, a full-day conference on Myanmar and the 2 Koreas. So anything, any subject, you know, any experts, they all seem to come here, and you know, you don't have to even leave the building to get that kind of experience, that kind of wealth and richness of opinion. And not only that, but when you attend your classes, your professors have a lot of like real life and working experience, so they have a lot of context that they often pull into class. You know, I have professors from the World Bank, and they know so many people, so we get a lot of, other than just kind of like lectures and seminar style classes, you get a lot of outside experts coming in as well. And if you don't have enough of that, your own departments, like I'm affiliated to China Studies, they host these brown bag lunches where they get visiting scholars, people from overseas and anywhere else to come. So, I mean, seriously, on top of your classes, if you're looking for even more intellectual stimulation, I mean, it's overwhelming. So I'm just saying that the wealth of the talks and the experts that come through the school, it's pretty impressive. I mean, speaking from a professional point of view. So I'll be here, and if anybody else wants to ask me about MIPP or you know, the kind of like how mid-career people fit into the school, yeah, just come on and ask. Thanks.
All right, hey guys, my name is Lubomir Sokol, and I'm a first-year student here at SAIS. I'm concentrating in Latin American Studies. I'm originally from the Czech Republic and went to undergrad at the University of Florida. And after undergrad, I did IT for like 2 years. Anyways, yeah, it was the boring part. Now the exciting part. When we first arrived here in DC as first years during preterm, myself and the other SGA first year representative, Rachel, decided, why is the second year class so awkward? What can we do to improve this? So in order to improve this, we launched a student ambassador program in which we sought current students to contact all of you guys who have been admitted to answer any questions you may have had. We're also launching a social mentor program in which all of you that decide to accept the SAIS offer, which I hope is everyone, will be paired up with 2 or 3 current students, so that when you make your transition to DC, they can take you out to dinner, help you with housing issues, because that's always a problem here in DC. Anyways, now the fun part, trips. So I think I was chosen to talk about trips because I feel like I've set a SAIS record for SAIS-sponsored trips this year. I've been on 3. I've been to Korea, Panama, as well as Honduras. 2 of those were SAIS student-initiated. So a group of us, which were the ones to Panama and Honduras, a group of us went down to build educational facilities in Honduras and latrines in Panama for the indigenous people there. SAIS definitely offered strong support from SGA as well as from the administration in terms of finances, so that's usually not an issue. It's a great way to meet all your classmates in a completely different manner because you're stuck with them for a week. So, I mean, you'll figure it out. But in case you have any other questions about trips or our mentor programs, let me know. Thanks.
I also want to say that I think in your welcome packets there was a SAIS Observer magazine. This has stories from some of the trips that you guys went on. Everything in here was written by students, and this is student produced. And it was made especially for you guys, so you guys can see a little more about what SAIS life is like. So if you just want to take a look at this at some point later today, I think it'll give you a lot more insight onto, you know, what things are like, what student life is like here, what kind of trips you can go on. There's pictures, people are talking about classes and concentrations. So it's just a lot of really good info, and it's a kind of, I was reading it last night, and it's really personal, a lot of the stories in here. So definitely take a look at that.
Could I just add one more thing that I forgot? In terms of the trips, there are many offered within your concentration. For instance, Latin American Studies has trips to China, to Costa Rica, next year to Brazil even. I know Strategic Studies has trips or just had a trip to Spain. So they're also offered through your concentration or through classes. The trip I took to Korea was through a class here at SAIS.
Okay, so now we'll open it up to Q&A. And we'll try and answer your questions as best we can. Okay. Oh, and everyone jump in on these.
Hi, my name is Sarah Solomon. I got accepted to the DC campus in the Russian and Eurasian Studies program. And I was wondering if any of you have continued to work while going to SAIS. I know there was a mention of internships, but that's what I'm planning on doing, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how feasible it is.
I worked at the State Department last semester, 30 hours a week, and it was tough. Like, it's completely doable, but you're going to have to decide what your priority is. I didn't do all the reading. I couldn't do it, and my papers probably suffered a little bit, but you have to balance that with the experience. For me personally, I wasn't coming from the international sector, so getting my foot in the door was really important to me, so you have to weigh the two. And one or both is going to suffer. You won't be able to do both at 100%. So it's really where your priorities are. But it is doable, but it is very difficult. So just be warned.
I also work part-time for a management consulting firm in climate change. Last semester in Bologna, and a little bit last semester here in DC. But it's extremely challenging, and if you really want to take advantage of all the events in DC, I mean, that's a decision you have to make. You have to pick your battles, because I mean, with exam, with midterms, and everything going on campus, it's really challenging to do both at the same time.
I also do know, I have a friend, he started working full-time as a journalist during SAIS. So he went full-time his first 2 semesters, and then I think the administration has been willing to work with him on how to get his schedule, like maybe only take 2 or 3 classes this semester so he can work a little more and then come back full-time. So it's definitely on a case-by-case basis, and the administration and Dean Harrington have been willing to work with people who are, especially if you have your dream job offer, you don't want to turn that down while you're in school, or at least try and somehow manage to do both of them. So.
My name is Stacy. I've been accepted to the Bologna program for General IR, and I'm sure that 95% of the people here want to know, and hopefully it's not too personal, it's really expensive. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with, I came out of undergraduate with no debt, alhamdulillah, but how do you deal with justifying that to yourself, or maybe looking at another school that gave you a better aid package? How do you make that decision, or how did you all personally handle that?
Can I answer that?
Go.
So that was definitely my #1 concern before I accepted here at SAIS. I have a very European mentality when it comes to debt and schooling. It shouldn't exist. That's pretty much it. But besides that, what I did last year was I contacted the Latin American Studies program, which is what I wanted to concentrate in, and I asked Ann McKenzie, the career coordinator there, or the program coordinator, for some contact information for alumni and current students, and just met with them to see where they were at, in their second year, and the alum, how she was doing after SAIS. And it's a personal decision in the end, but I haven't regretted it thus far. Ask me again in a year.
I would say, I actually deferred going to SAIS for a year. Basically, that was one of the reasons, because that was a big factor for me, especially coming from Ireland, where we don't really pay for education for 3rd level. In the end of the day, I justified it was kind of an investment in myself in some ways. You don't really get these opportunities of this kind of caliber of education in many parts of Europe. And coming to the US, I just saw this as the best, as going to a US institution that would offer me that kind of education. But it was a very big decision for me. Also, life in Bologna it's considerably cheaper than here in DC. I think here in DC, my rent is extortionate. I feel like I'm getting robbed every month. It's extortionate. To give you an example, in Bologna, the rent is between about €350, €375 to about €500 a month, which and then eating expense as well. It's quite comparable. You can get pizzas as big as yourself for about €5. It's phenomenal. But yeah, it is a big decision to make, and I deferred for a year, and in the end I decided to go with it. Also, if you do really well in your academics, there's a good chance that you can get certain scholarships for your second year as well.
also one thing you should think about when you're considering all these options is going to grad school. I mean, at least you have to think about what you want to do afterwards. And if you want to go into government, there are programs there where after you work 10 years, anything that's left on your student loans is basically paid off by the government. I think State Department has that. The Fed has that. Some other ones do. So those are things to look into, especially if you want to go into public service. It also, if your career plans are to go into finance or consulting, like may seem like a lot of money now that you're paying, but 5 years from now you'll probably laugh at it. So, I mean, you really have to think about your career plans, and if you know you're going to be going into nonprofits, then I think financial aid is probably a bigger consideration for you at this point in time. I mean, just to be realistic. So,
I just wanted to say, I mean, like for me, I took a whole year off of work. I'm on no pay. I've given up a whole year's worth of, I'm just cut myself out from the career track for a whole year. But I mean, a lot of people feel like you're making a real investment, especially for people who feel like they've hit a plateau, or feel like they want to expand into different fields. So it's something to think about. And also, I mean, I see a lot of people here. The school has a lot of student employment opportunities. I see a lot of people who work in the library, the gift shops and all that, and there are ways the school does come in to provide opportunities for you to supplement your income and stuff like that. I hear the pay's not bad. So, I mean, but I think always go talk to somebody here at the school. There are ways to get by. Yeah. And to your question earlier, I think it's for me, it was impossible to work and study at the same time. It was just, I mean, you wanted to kind of like get into school, not only just attend classes, read for your classes, do your papers on time, but meet people, take part in activities here. And if you work, it can get pretty crazy. So that's just my opinion. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jonah Rosenthal. I've been accepted to the Bologna Center. So my question is especially targeted to, I guess, Patrick and Melissa. Could you talk a little bit about the process of transitioning from the really community center and academic environment of Bologna to the more, I guess, varied and hectic environment of Washington, and just from one place to a very different place? What was that like for you guys?
Yeah, sure. It was a bit difficult. I mean, the housing situation can be quite tough, but at the same time, you've such strong friendships with people within Bologna that you come with 2 or 3 people that you know who you're already going to live with. So you already have your set kind of house and your set group, and we all kind of end up living in kind of little communities around DC, and we all have our own little Bolognese mafia kind of idea. So it can be difficult, like adjusting to it's a much more fast-paced life here. You have a lot more, I guess, freedom to absorb things in Bologna. But at the same time, it's kind of, this is where the work is. This is where the center of power is in the end of the day. That you kind of want to be here. In the adjustment process, the only thing I would say is housing is a slight difficulty. It's just getting used to what to do. And I know this year the SGA for next year are working, or I've heard rumours and rumblings of the SGA working with building a housing database that you'll kind of start to see that houses are passed on from SAIS student to SAIS student. So that's going to be a lot more streamlined. Beyond that, though, it's quite easy. Yeah, unless there's anything to add.
Yes, I think, the big advantage of being here in DC is that we already had a strong group of people that we could rely on. So I think the flip side is to pay attention and to make sure that you also connect with the DC people. So I think I didn't really have the chance to do it during the first semester, but you have to be involved in all the activities going on here also and try to be in the Bolognese ghetto only, because I mean there are also interesting people that you can meet here. So.
Hello, my name is Paloma. I was admitted to the MA and International Development Program. I was wondering if any of you have thought about continuing to the PhD and how easy it is to continue studying after the MA. How long does it take? And is it a good thing to continue?
Takes a long time.
Are you talking about the SAIS PhD program or just PhDs anywhere after? I know I'm not. And I don't want to.
I guess I've contemplated in my mind a small bit. I sit on the Bologna Center Advisor Council, and I was in Bologna there about 3 weeks ago for a meeting, and the idea of doing a PhD there seems quite attractive. I know here that from students who do PhDs here, it takes about 4 to 5 years. You have your first 2 years are classes, but if you've done the MA, that can be a bit reduced, and then you have 3 years to write your thesis. I don't think many students go directly from your MA into a PhD. I think a few students will take a few years out just to get more experience, and then take that experience into their PhD. But it has happened where you go direct. Also, I think the places are quite. There's normally, like, each department will maybe accept 1 or 2 students a year for a PhD program, but it's on a case-by-case basis, from what I understand.
Hi, my name is Valerie. I was accepted into the MA program both years in DC, and I was wondering what's the best way to get involved as a first year in DC in the SGA?
Well, at the beginning of the school year, Lubomir, we're having elections right now for next year's SGA, but whoever is elected, 3 people will be coming from the DC campus and 2 from the Bologna, and so they'll kind of be the core of the SGA already starting, and they'll run elections in the fall for the 2 first-year representative positions and then the MIPP representative position. And all you have to do is sign up, and usually those elections happen like the 2nd or 3rd week of school in the fall semester, so in mid-September. And that's all you really have to do to get involved and to start interacting. We also have some student committees. The vice president runs the academic affairs committee, which works with Dean Harrington on academic issues. And there's definitely students who volunteer for that. You can just say, hey, I'd like to be on this committee. There will be an email out in the fall about it if you want to join that and be involved with academic issues. Jason, do you want to talk about how some people get involved with the social committee?
So for all of our social events, we always need help running them. So if you're ever interested in helping to plan or run any of those events, we're always looking for volunteers. And similarly, I'm sure many of your friends will be involved in a lot of the clubs, and the clubs are always looking for volunteers. And most of the faculty and staff are also very friendly, so you're perfectly welcome to just go walk into someone's office and just talk and say hi. And the more you network, the more you'll be involved with things.
Can I add something? Yeah. I would mention 2 words: do preterm. If you want to, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
If you want to, it's great for social networking to meet all your classmates because you're pretty much taking 1 or 2 econ classes. You don't have a full course load, and it's also a great way to, start throwing out ideas if you want to get involved with SGA or start your own club or something like that.
The other good thing about preterm too is that there's a lot of kids there, a lot of students who are going to Bologna, also mixed in with students who are staying for 2 years in DC. So you actually get to meet and become friends with them before they leave. I mean, they're gone for a year, but at least you know each other when they get back, and it helps with making friends with all the Bologna people, and vice versa. So, yeah.
Questions back here.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll do this one.
Hi, my name is Danielle, and my question just relates again to this whole issue of working, doing internships while studying. I think I read that like 50% of SAIS students do them. We were talking earlier about how, academics is really a big focus of this school, and, arguably for someone like myself who doesn't really have an econ background, I imagine that'll take a good amount of my time. But on the other hand, there's this whole draw of being in DC and being able to do all these internships. Can you guys just talk a little bit about your experiences or your classmates' experiences and just realistically how that plays out? And also, I'd be curious to know if you honestly ever feel like it affects the level of like academic discourse in class. Jason, I know you mentioned that just personally you weren't able to give as much to a particular class because of your State Department internship. So I'd be curious to know about that.
It depends on how many hours you want to work. Different places will require different things. There are internships that people work 15 hours, which are much more reasonable. That's closer to what you'll be working if you work in the library or something. State wanted me to work 40, and I had to talk them down from that to get to 30. But you also have to realize that other grad schools in the area work a little bit differently. So like George Washington, for example, is a commuter school. Like they have all their classes at night, so specifically designed so people can go to work during the day. So when I was working at State, I had someone else in the office from George Washington, and my boss couldn't understand why I had classes, from 10 to 2, so I had to come in on weird hours, and the George Washington kid had to come in they could be there all day. So it really depends on where you're working, how well a lot of places know SAIS very well, and they're more than happy to work with your schedule. So those places, it's easier. I really want to push, especially in your first year, to not work a lot, because there are so many opportunities that SAIS provides. There's so many speakers. The best thing you're going to get out of SAIS is the network you get. We talk about the alumni community as the SAIS mafia. And for you lucky people going to Bologna, it's even stronger, the bonds between the Bologna people. SAIS alumni are so good about responding to people and so good about helping you find jobs, find housing, anything. The best thing you will get out of, and what I think makes the program worth it, is the connections that you'll make. Like these people who you're in this room will be the leaders, of the State Department, of Treasury, of the Fed, of private sector in 15, 20 years. So by sacrificing, you're not just sacrificing your academics, you're sacrificing the connections you'll be making with other people. So if the internship is really good and it's going to change your life, do it, but also realize there's a huge opportunity cost.
I can't see. So.
Hello, on. Hi, my name is Matt Melchior, and I was admitted to the Bologna Center for the MA program. And I just had a question about how each of you managed the language component with your classes and possibly with an internship. Did you find that it was easiest to test out coming in with a language that you had already spoken, and how many of you would recommend just starting from scratch with a new language that might be, for your intended concentration, more useful?
I would recommend, what most people do is that they usually test out if you already know Spanish, but you want to learn Arabic. I would say test out with Spanish so your graduation requirement is done, but then take Spanish for fun. And then some semesters you'll have classes where, you can't take Arabic that semester because you have an internship and you have 3 econ courses and you just don't have time for it. But then you're not sweating the graduation requirement. So I think a lot of people do that. They kind of finish the one language that they're really good in when they come in, and then they'll start taking another one for fun, and maybe they won't get to the proficiency test stage, but at least they've had 3 semesters of Arabic. So I think that's how I would recommend doing it. If you're starting from scratch, especially with a difficult language like Chinese or Russian or Arabic, it's going to take up at least 10 hours, probably 10 hours a week between language class and the homework for the language class. So if you're trying to do an internship and you have 4 other lecture courses, that's it's 10 hours right there. That's a big time commitment. So.
Yeah, for the language thing, I just wanted to say that this is not like fun and games. The classes are pretty intense. There's a lot of homework involved, and the instructors take it very seriously. You'll get a lot out of it, but it is like a full other class, and there'll be a lot of homework. So.
Yeah, when I started Chinese here, I had already done a year in China. But the rule was that our teacher said, for 1 hour class, you should probably have about an hour of homework. So if you're starting Chinese level 1, that's 9 hours of class per week. So you can do the math and figure out how much homework you need. If you're coming in at a higher level, like I'm in Chinese now, I only have 4.5 hours of class per week for it. So as you get to a higher level, the number of hours in class go down, and so does the homework.
Yeah, but even I'm in Chinese, like just post proficiency, just to keep it up. It's 2 hours a week, but you know, you're expected to put aside maybe 2 to 3 hours for homework. So.
Hi, I'm Sarita. I was admitted to the Bologna program as well, and actually, as long as we're talking about languages, I had a question about Italian while you're in Bologna. Like, I was looking at the pre-term courses, and I know that they offer Italian, but how often do people develop any sort of proficiency in Italian, and is it possible to do so in Bologna, but if you want to take Arabic classes or something like that, to sort of, like, you know, do 2 languages at once, and like, what level of immersion is there?
So I took pre-term Italian in Bologna. It's quite intensive. It's 5 hours a day for 4 weeks. The best way, you can only do 1 language per semester. So the best way, if you want to do another language besides and learn Italian at the same time, is you'll see these signs all over the university and all over Bologna looking for people to speak English with. Italian students are desperate to speak English. So you just meet up with some local Bolognese person for maybe 1 or 2 hours a week, and you talk in Italian and they'll talk in English, and you correct each other. And that's easily the best way, if you're doing another language, to pick up Italian. As well, all the staff in the Bologna Center are either Italian or speak Italian as well, so you can easily converse with them in Italian too. And there's there's normally every year about 5 to 10 Italian students as well. So normally they're more than happy to speak Italian. They'll chat on for hours with you as well. But you can't take 2 languages. From what I understand, you're not able to take 2 languages at the same time at the Bologna Center, or I think here at SAIS as well.
You can take 2, but you have to be taking post-proficiency. You have to be post-proficient in one of them. So that's the only requirement.
Hi, my name is Sumit Monk. I have 2 questions. One of them is how accessible you find the professors here. Obviously, a lot of them are practitioners in the field and have a lot of other obligations. I just want to know what your feeling is in terms of how much time they're able to devote to students. If you have questions, come knocking on their door, that sort of thing. And secondly, obviously, SAIS is very well recognized in the DC area. How do you feel about how well SAIS is recognized outside of this area compared to other competitive programs in international relations? Thank you.
Well, I've been lucky that the professors that I've had that are practitioners, they're always available. They give me their phone numbers, email address, everything, and they always say, any questions that you have, I am available for you. And I mean, last semester, one of my professors, he works at the World Bank, so he's like, just stop by, let me know when you want to stop by, since he doesn't have like official office hours here at SAIS. And those that do have office hours, you just sign up for their office hours, but if you cannot make those hours, they will work with you, especially when we have a paper due or if you have any concerns. They are really interested in getting to know you, aside from getting to know the concerns that you have about the course. So I like that combination, that a professor wants to get to know me first before they teach me the course. And how well SAIS is recognized? Well, I'll be going to the Foreign Service after SAIS, and I did an internship at the embassy in Buenos Aires in Argentina last summer. And not only did I work with 3 SAIS alumni, but I just had to say the word SAIS, and everyone already knew that it was a great economics department and a great economics school. So SAIS does have a great reputation.
I would just say about the reputation, just from personal experience, it is rising in other parts of the world. Like, it's becoming more well known in Europe, but it's really there's an undercurrent of students who've gone to SAIS or know SAIS, who are in kind of high policy positions where it's very well known. I guess just for one example, I was last month I was trying to bring the Irish Prime Minister here to SAIS. He comes to visit DC for St. Patrick's Day. And when I was contacting people back in the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs, his chief economic advisor went to SAIS. You kind of just bump into people like that outside the DC area. You kind of just bump into things like that, and you can be quite amazed how friendly and how accommodating they can be, and forthcoming as well.
Hi, my name is Eric. I was admitted to the DC program. I have a question about the specialized economics concentrations. Some of them sound really interesting, but I think a lot of us in here might come in with very little econ background, the popularity of the preterm and stuff like that. And there are big warnings plastered all over the book about how they're not meant for people who don't have econ background. They take a lot of work, and be careful. I was wondering if any of you are doing any of those concentrations and could talk a little bit more about how much work they require, whether you think they're worthwhile, how useful they are. Thanks.
So I came to SAIS because I had no econ background, and I'm doing the international finance one. It's just about how you, I guess, set up your schedule of courses. You definitely have a more rigid course structure because you have to take, I think it's 4 or 5 classes to meet each of the different econ specializations. So I don't think that you need to have a lot of econ experience going into them, at least for the international finance one. I know there's one on quantitative methods that might be a little more tough if you've never done statistics or econometrics before. And I think there's another one for development economics or something like that. I don't know much about that one or how much you need to know beforehand, but I feel that they're definitely doable even if you don't have previous econ experience. But I would have to say that if you're going to pursue it, you really have to know that you want to take more than the standard number of econ courses here. Like I'm taking 10. When I think you're only required to take 4 or 6 or something like that. So you have to really know that you want to do econ and that you're actually enjoying your econ courses. So.
And I'd also add for SAIS, I'm not doing one. And I actually have a math background, but from talking to SAIS alumni and deciding whether or not I should do this, they all told me no. And the reasoning is that when someone's looking at your transcript, they care more about what individual classes you took, not if there's a thing that says you did this finance specialization in it. If you took multinational corporate finance and international financial markets, so don't sacrifice one of your other electives that you want to take just to get this on your transcript. The thing on your transcript doesn't mean much, really, maybe to one employer. What matters far more is the classes, and take what classes you're interested in. So only do it if you really want to do it. And if you're even thinking about it, though, make sure to do preterm and get 1 or 2 of your econ classes out of the way so you don't stress as much about your schedule.
And I just want to add that for all the econ class that we had TAs available for all these classes, so you can really interact with them if you have any major issues on the topic.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I'm admitted into the Bologna program in Latin American Studies. And my question is actually along the lines of what you're talking about classes. I noticed that a lot of the programs are very structured, and I've heard that sometimes there are classes that are difficult to get into. Could you speak a little bit about classes you've had you didn't think you'd get into that you got into, and maybe also some of the challenges for getting into difficult classes?
So, can I take that one? So for LASP, we really haven't had an issue with classes being overbooked, and when they have been, like this semester, Professor Gonzalez's Mexico class was overbooked a little bit, so he just increased the enrollment for that class and just let everyone in. So in LASP, we really haven't had that problem. Where you run into problems is when especially as a second year, you're given priority for all these classes anyways, within any concentration. Where you run into an issue is when the class is cross-listed amongst like 3 or 4 different concentrations. But I think there may be like 3 classes that I can think of right now that are cross-listed under LASP and something else where we've had a slight issue.
But along those lines, like Lubomir said, some professors if it's 2 or 3 people over the limit, then they'll just bump it up and say that's fine. We also do a point bidding system here, and on the academics part of the SAIS website, they post the bidding reports for the previous year, so you can see how many points certain classes went for. And they're really trying to add additional sections of courses. I know for project finance, which was always a really popular one and always went for a lot of points, and the professor is very strict about keeping it at 20 people or 25 people. He said no more than that. They added another section this year for the first time. So now there's one in the fall and one in the spring, and that's dramatically dropped the number of points needed to get into the course. I think even in the fall one, they didn't even have to bid on it. So they're really trying to address these issues of if there's high demand for these few courses, can we add one more section? Can we find another professor to teach another section? And they've been really actively looking at that. I talked to Dean Harrington specifically about this a couple weeks ago. So,
When I came in, I mean, I could take 4 classes, and 3 of the classes that I wanted went up for bidding. So it was pretty stressful. But what I would say is that the first week is shopping week, where you're allowed to just sit in for as many classes as you want. So I would suggest that during that week, just kind of go hop around and, you know, kind of shortlist like a whole bunch of classes that you want to maybe think about taking, like go and try it out. Maybe you like this professor's style of teaching and stuff like. It's always kind of like, I mean, there's so many courses here at SAIS. I think that you can always surprise yourself. Maybe, you know, you'd be interested in a course that you never thought you'd be interested in, and just kind of have that short list. And I think that even if you, unless you really, really want to get into a particular class, I think that, you know, you can always kind of work things out somehow. Yeah, so shopping week is really important.
And if you do not get the course that you wanted, you can also audit the course, so you can sit in the course whenever you can, if you have time, and you can still get the value out of the class.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I was admitted to the Bologna campus, and I don't know if this is really kosher to ask, but what other programs were you considering? And I think that's kind of a concern among a lot of people. What other programs were you considering, and how did you ultimately make the decision to attend SAIS? All right.
No comment.
Okay.
No comment.
I just talk in general. Like, I came straight out of undergrad, so I was looking for a very well-structured program, and I was interested in economics, and I wanted to continue studying economics. And then I got into the development program, so who could say no to that? So that's how I chose SAIS over the other schools.
I can talk a little bit. So for me, it came down to Kennedy, Fletcher, American, and SAIS. And if you're interested in IR, I think you can rule out Kennedy pretty quick. They do have a global studies program, but it's not nearly as strong as what you'd get at SAIS. Plus, I wanted to be in DC. Like, if you're interested in international affairs, this is kind of the city to be in. Boston is great, but you're just not going to meet the same people working in DC or working in Boston. And I felt personally the professors and the academics were stronger at SAIS than American, so that's why I picked SAIS over them.
I really wanted econ experience, and I had none, so I looked at all the different courses, and I think I was even able to look at some course reviews as well and compare between schools, and so I picked SAIS just based on the econ curriculum, which was much more expansive than other schools in DC and New York and Boston that I got into. So. Someone from the back, yeah.
Strategic Studies program in Washington, D.C. I have 2 questions. One is about preterm. I currently live and work in D.C., and I'm wondering if I can still work and do preterm. I don't know if the classes are during the day or at night. And also, if the student trips, like during intersession and the staff rides with Strategic Studies, are they funded by SAIS? And if not, are there opportunities for student aid for that? Thank you.
Okay, so I was working when I was doing preterm, and I had to just finish. I couldn't do preterm and work at the same time because we have a morning session and an afternoon session, and it's every day. And the amount of work that you have to do and the problem sets, and you have to meet with people, with your group to do your problem sets. And I bombed the first exam, but then I stopped working, and then I aced the rest of the course. So working during preterm is very hard.
You want to talk about some trips?
Sure, I can answer the trips question. For the staff ride, as I'm aware, I believe the department subsidized their costs. I believe each individual participant ended up paying about $500. That included the flight, their stay in like 4-star hotels for about 9 days. So I think that's a pretty good deal. For our trips, for the service trips we did, we fundraised and wrote grants for most of them. And for Panama, we completely covered our costs. For Honduras, I think I paid for the plane ticket. So those were each like 9 or 10 days as well.
It's really department depend. Like it depends on who's originating the trip. Strategic studies, they have a lot of money for trips, and so they're able to cover. The department's able to cover a lot of the costs for a lot of the things they do. So they have some nominal fees just to get your kind of commitment and buy-in for it. I know the Korean Studies program. They get LASP, they get money from governments and stuff like that. So it just really depends on the program and who's leading the trip and like who the professor is. Even sometimes they can fundraise from people they know and their own contacts. So it's really highly dependent. But I'd say a lot of stuff is heavily underwritten by school funding, and then you pay some sort of money, at least to make sure that you're committed to the trip and.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I was admitted to the DC program. I've been out of undergrad for 2 years, and my work experience is in education, and so I'm kind of looking to transition. My 2 questions are, in terms of concentrations, how flexible is it in terms of switching or time you get to decide? And also for internships and jobs afterwards, how supportive did you find the career services program? Did you feel like you had to network all yourself, or were there structured programs that you felt were really helpful to you?
So what was your first point again? I'm sorry.
Transitioning.
Transitioning. So I guess in terms of figuring out what you want to do, I would say by the end of your first year, you definitely need to know your concentration. For some things that you have to apply ahead of time for, like international development, I don't think you can really switch into it. I think that you have to be admitted from the very first semester. Is ERE energy? I think energy resources in the environment, that's also the same way. I know this year they had one or few students. Oh, it's not? Oh, okay.
It's just harder to switch.
Oh, okay. It's only IDEV. So there is some time to experiment, but I think if you want to do IDEV, then you really need to know that and have been accepted to that coming in. But I think in terms of finding your way, it's, there's a lot of latitude to switch concentrations. Some people do dual concentrations because they're really interested in China and then also energy. So I know one guy who's doing both of those. Obviously, your schedule is really pretty much plotted out for you. You don't have a lot of room to maneuver in terms of electives, but you can definitely do that. You guys want to talk about career services?
Yeah, and in terms of career services, I found them to be very good here, much better than they were in my undergraduate university. They're very proactive. There's a lot of events, like networking events, and also if you go into them, you say, I want to work in this field, or I'd like to work in this company in this kind of section. Invariably, they have like a long list of names for you to contact, and of SAIS alum, and 9 times out of 10 they'll get back to you in about a day, and you'll meet them within about a week, and they'll give you like a lot of insight into the roles, which is very good to do. I guess you do it slightly in your first year, but given that I'm graduating soon, I'm doing it a lot more now.
And also through your own departments, they'll send out emails like periodically, actually quite regularly. They get a lot of emails and offers for internships and stuff like that through their own contacts. Like say China Studies, they have people in China, Hong Kong, and wherever who constantly bombard them with requests for a SAIS intern. So look out for those emails as well. That's also another avenue.
It's also dependent on what your interest is. If you want to work in finance, we're not New York and we're not an MBA program. There's a lot of people who do go into finance straight out of SAIS, but they really have to network their way in. They're on the phone a lot with alumni. They're taking bus trips up to New York for informational lunches on their own accord. So, there's that. And then the opposite of that is maybe, development consulting here in DC. We have a lot of people who come to campus to recruit. Government agencies come here to recruit. So that's a lot. That's a bit easier in terms of, people coming here to you and definitely trying to solicit you and get your attention. So, you just have to think about what DC's strengths are, and it's really, government, nonprofit, NGOs. Whereas if you want to do some more consulting or finance type stuff that's in New York, you're going to have to network a lot more.
Okay, Sean, we're cutting in already to the international economics session, so if you could close it out, that'd be great.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming. Enjoy your international economics session. I think we'll all go back to our homeworks now. So.
Okay, thank you guys, did a great job, thank you.